today we're going to talk about how to start seeds and how I start seeds. This is not the way to start seeds. There are lots of different ways to do it. There are lots of different pieces of equipment that people use. There are soil blocks, wind strip trays, cell flats, all sorts of stuff. I'm not here to talk about the differences between those and which ones are better or not. I haven't used all of them, so I can't really speak to the benefits of them. But this is what I've been using, and it's been working pretty well. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. There are different size trays. I have a few different sizes. This one is a 72 cells per tray. We have some 128s and then some 200s. And I recently switched over to 200s for lettuce, and I really seem to like it. Now, when I first started doing lettuces, I was doing them in the 128s, and that worked great. Now that I'm a little bit more comfortable with the timing and getting better germination and things like that, I switched over to the 200, and mainly it's because they take up less space, and when I'm starting a lot of stuff at once, I kind of run out of rack space. So I've been using the 200s, and that's what we will be using today. The smaller cells also tend to use a little bit less soil, so I like that too. But any of these will work. I do use the larger ones for some stuff like squash and cucumbers. The 128s I was using for tomatoes, and then taking those and potting them into bigger pots after about 3 or 4 weeks. So they all have their uses, and we'll be using the 200s today. So some of you are going to ask me about what soil mix I use. So this is what we use. We use the SunGrow Professional Growing Mix. It's OMRI listed. We get it from our local farm supply store or feed store. It's been really great and consistent for us, and they sell it to us at a pretty good price. It is mostly peat moss with some other stuff in it, but it's been great for starts and also for microgreens. I don't use this for potting things up. I'd use more of a potting soil or potting mix that has a little more nutrients in it, but this has been great for starts and for microgreens. All right, so how many seeds do we start? Well, our beds are 50 feet long and 30 inches wide, and we plant, for lettuce, this is what we're talking about today, we're planting 4 rows, and each lettuce head will be 6 inches apart. So if you do the calculation there, we need 400 heads per bed. So today I'm going to start enough for 2 beds, so that would be 800. And you always want a little bit of fudge factor, a little bit of extra, in case there's some seeds that didn't germinate or things get damaged while you're pulling them out, or whatever. You always need to plant a little bit extra. And so when I first started, I would plant, I don't know, maybe 25 to 50% extra seeds, just because I wasn't as confident about my skills in germination and getting these guys out in the field. Now I'm planting maybe 10%, maybe a little bit less extra. So these are 200, so 800 would be 4 trays. I'm going to plant a little bit of another tray as the extra here. So the first step we do is we just take our soil and spread it out. So I've already sort of, I don't sift this. This stuff's been great. I don't really need to, but I do sort of break it up so it's nice and fine. And I just spread it out, and I used to sort of really pack it down pretty tight, but I heard from some other people that it's actually better if you don't, because then you can pull the plugs out a little bit easier. So what I do here, and I said this last tray here, I'm not going to do the whole tray because I don't need to plant that many seeds. So we're just going to spread this all out. I'm not really pushing down, I'm kind of just letting it fall in. And it's nice if you have a bunch to do at once, it makes it pretty easy, because once you have everything set up, it's easy to just do a bunch. So once I get the trays covered, I just drop them like that. If there's any low areas, I'll just put a little bit more soil on them. There you go. Last thing I do before we start putting seeds in is I just go through and quickly dibble them lightly, just so the seeds have a little space to sit. So I'm really not compacting it very much here. And and I just kind of fairly quickly go through and dibble these. Alright, there you go. These trays are ready to add seed. Now, let's talk about lettuce. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of lettuce to grow, and most market gardeners are growing Salanova. And I did grow a bunch of Salanova last year, and I honestly didn't have the best luck with it. And a lot of it was probably the fact that I wasn't a great farmer the first half of last year. But here it is very hot and humid during the summer, and I found some other varieties that work a lot better for me. And I grew both Salanova and this mix over the winter, and this mix performed better. So when I switched from Salanova over to this other mix, my customers didn't really see the difference so much, and these are going to families. If I was selling more to restaurants and they had a very specific salad they were making, it might be a different story. So we've made the switch. This is a mixture of some summer crisps, or French crisp varieties, and what we're using are Mir and Cherokee and Magenta. So that's our mix we're doing this year. So I'm kind of going against the flow of what all the market gardeners seem to be doing with growing Salanova. And the main reason is this has just been performing better for me in my context. Salanova is a beautiful lettuce. I was growing a couple different varieties. It makes a really nice salad mix or spring mix, and looks really pretty with all the different shapes and colors. This just seems to perform better and more consistent for me, not just in the summer, but also in the winter. Might try some more Salanova in the future, but this is what we're going with this year. And might be a little controversial for some people who are really stuck on the Salanova. The seed is also a little bit cheaper, although that doesn't tend to be a huge deciding factor, because when you think about how much the seed costs for each bed, it's really not that much money. It's just a bigger amount of money that you have to put up front at the beginning of the season or halfway through the season or whenever you need seeds. So I've already pre-mixed these seeds, and that way when I plant them out in the field, they're already mixed. So when I go to harvest them, then it'll already be mixed up, and that's the kind of product that I'm looking for. One thing to point out is make sure you buy pelleted lettuce seed. Regular lettuce seed is super, super tiny, and I just can't manipulate them with my fingers. So make sure you order pelleted seed if you're doing lettuce. It makes your life so much easier. And as I said, this mix is mostly Mir, a little bit of Cherokee, and a little bit of Magenta. So let's get started with the planting. It's pretty straightforward. I just hold some in my hand here, and then take a couple at a time and just go down the line and plant them. Now, it seems a little bit of a tedious job, but when you're at the scale that I'm at, it really doesn't take that long, and it's pretty effective. You can be pretty accurate with it. Often when I'm doing this kind of work, I have headphones on, I'm listening to a podcast or something like that. So one thing I really want to address on this YouTube channel is being very transparent, very honest with everybody. That's just sort of how I am anyways. So the mix I'm doing right now is 70% Mir, 15% Cherokee, and 15% Magenta, and that mix might change over the course of the season if I don't like the way it's looking or performing or whatever, but that's what I'm going with right now. And the other part is the seed cost was really not a big factor in this, and you got to think about it a little bit differently than, well, I have to pay $200 or $500 or whatever at the beginning of the season to get your lettuce seeds. Now each bed is 50 feet long, and I get about 50 pounds off the first cut. On average, if I'm, let's say, getting $10 a pound, that's $500 in sales off that one bed. And how much were the seeds? A few bucks? It doesn't really matter. So get the seeds that are right for you, your context, what your customers like, what grows well, that sort of thing. So now that these are all full, I'm just gonna cover them up with a little bit more soil. A lot of people use vermiculite. I haven't tried that yet. It looks cool. This has just been working for me. So I just put a thin layer, real thin, and I can't stress that enough. You wanna make sure the seeds are covered, but you don't want it too thick because it gives the seeds a little bit more effort to push through. But having a little bit of soil on the top really helps keep the seeds moist, allows them to germinate really well. I'm just gonna cover them up. And when I'm smoothing it out here, I'm being real gentle, because if I pull too hard, I'll pop the seeds right out. So you want to be real gentle while you're spreading out the soil. And you'll get a feel for this after you do a few rounds. Really, none of this is super complicated. This is just sort of what I've seen to be working well for me. I'm sure everyone does this differently. This is just how I do it. And if you're a beginning farmer or gardener, it's cool to just see how other people are doing things. But it's also cool if you've been doing it for a while, because everyone sort of does it a little bit differently, and you go, hey, I like that, or I think that guy's crazy, or whatever. So anyways, they're all covered up now. You can see this doesn't take too long. The hardest and most challenging part is just focusing while you're singulating the seeds. Now, I have to say is, take your time with that. You don't want to put more than one seed in each hole for a few reasons. One is, they won't grow as well if they both germinate. You should be shooting for pretty much 100% germination on all these seeds by the time you get everything dialed in. And then if you do have multiple seeds in each cell, then you have to spend time thinning them afterwards, which just doesn't make you any money. It's just a waste of time. So one seed per cell. So now that we've got all these trays ready to go, I'll do some watering. So I really like these watering wands, and a couple things to keep in mind here is that you don't want to spray right on the tray, because it'll disturb the soil and cause all the seeds to come out and just create a mess. So you want to move it gently across, and when you turn directions, you want to be past the trays. I didn't pre-moisten the soil when I put the soil into the trays, so I'm going to give it 2 serious soakings, and then I'll move them inside under lights. You can see the head on this is very gentle, but it does put down quite a bit of water. So if you put one really, really heavy soaking on, what's going to happen is that the soil won't absorb it all. So we'll put it soaking on, let it sit for a second, and then do another one. Here's the second watering. Another tip here is use these little tags. I can't remember anything, so with everything going on, you gotta write things down, you're never gonna remember. They aren't expensive, they're, I don't know, maybe 5 cents a piece. I use them several times. If it's the same plant, I just change the date on it, or I cross out and use the other side, so I get multiple uses out of each one. I just find it's easy to keep track of things when you get confused about what tray got started when, so make sure you label everything. So sorry if it's kind of loud in the background. There's guys leaf blowing and blowing lawns. I live in the suburbs, so this is like constant noise over here, especially on the weekends. So I use solid trays without holes underneath, because I grow these inside and I bottom water. So I just transfer them onto the solid trays and then bring them inside. Now, I struggled a lot with germination with lettuce last year, and a couple little pointers helped me a lot. Temperature is crucial. I think like 70 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit is just about perfect for lettuce. I've had great success there. The other thing is I don't use those little dome cover things. I just take a spray bottle with some water, and I just mist it a couple times a day until it starts to germinate. If everything's going right, it should be 3 or 4 days max to get these guys to germinate, and then I'll start bottom watering. So we'll move all these guys inside, and I'll show you some succession of lettuces at different times to see what they should look like. Temperature is crucial for germination, as I said. So in the summertime, this is in my garage. I keep the air conditioner on here to keep it cool. And I literally just use, as I said, a spray bottle with water. I don't need to do this right now because I just put these in here, but I'll just go ahead and mist these a couple times a day to keep them moist. All right, so this is some lettuce that I planted 1 week ago. You see I pretty much got 100% germination, which is great. And I'm growing these under the lights, as I said. You can see the solid tray here, and I'm bottom watering. And with bottom watering, you don't want to over water because then the soil gets super soggy. So I just watch it, and when I look under there and there's no water, I add a little bit of water. It seems to work really, really well. This is 2+ trays, so this will be enough for 1 bed. All right, so after I'd say about 2.5 weeks is what's working well for me. I take them from inside under the lights and bring them out here. This is a kind of embarrassed by this, but I saw this idea from a couple guys and it just seemed to work at the moment. Long term, I like to get a real nursery, but this is just a 4-foot by 8-foot platform with, I had some extra greenhouse plastic and I used some PVC here and created this little, I don't know what you call this, a mini greenhouse type thing. And this is on one of our decks here, and it gets some good light and it's been working, but I use this for hardening off, and that is a crucial step in getting your transplants out into the field. If they don't spend time outside and you go right from inside to outside, the plants will not survive. They will not grow strong. There'll be way more transplant shock. And so one of the best things you can do about being successful while growing lettuce is kind of the obvious thing, but start with a really good transplant. So these guys here are, I'd say, about 2.5 weeks old, and you can see they're pretty big, nice and strong. And I just moved these out this morning to make room for the trays that we just planted. Now they'll be out here for, I would say, a minimum of 5 days, but you can extend that out depending on, you know, what you got going on outside on the field, what the weather's like, what you have room for, did you have time to prep those beds, that sort of thing. I wouldn't really go much further than a total of 3.5 to 4 weeks. You're kind of pushing it at 4 weeks from seeding time until transplanting. If the lettuces aren't looking good and strong, don't transplant them. Start over. Make sure you get it right, because otherwise you're just wasting space in the field. Unless you have lots of extra space. I don't. I really cram in as much as I can. And so part of the hardening off process is getting them used to being outside, getting them used to the wind. This thing right here, I can roll this down, so in the evening if it's really chilly, I can roll it down, but they're getting plenty of breeze, they're getting natural sunlight, and so they get used to that before they get transplanted out into the field. Hey, so I hope you enjoyed this video about how to start seeds, how to get them germinate, how to get the transplants ready to go out into the field. I know we talked mainly about lettuce because that's most of what I grow, and I'll probably talk about other things as they come about on the farm over the course of the season. So please like this video, share with your friends, hit subscribe. I'd like to try to get this information out to as many people as possible, and I need your help. Still gonna try to shoot for that 1 to 2 videos a week kind of thing as I have time between running the farm, Instagram, all other things going on, being a dad and a good husband. So feel free to comment and get involved in the conversation. I have a pretty nice list of topics that I'd like to cover, so I'm going to try to work through that as quickly as I can and take more suggestions for you guys. So hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.